gave me a clue about what might have happened with the airplane crash of Greg Biffle. Stay tuned. The Spy Guy starts right now. So I will start right here. This is a clump of trees that were cut down that were clipped by the airplane just before it crashed. I took the piece home, put it in my truck. The next morning, when I got up and smelled my truck, it smelled like varnish. And I was like, what in the world is that smell? The answer is it was jet fuel that had soaked into the wood, but I didn't smell it when I was standing there. But the next morning I did. So that means that the fuel tank on the wing was punctured before the airplane crashed. It was punctured when it hit this clump of trees right here. And I'll show you how I figured that happened. Check this out. So look at this. The crash happened behind us. The right wing, the tip of it hit the edge of that tree right there. And that right there is the very last T-light, and it tore the top off of it. So the airplane came in low. You see the other T-light is good. So it split the wing right there. Fuel spilled onto the trees, and there's the top of it right there. I don't know if it slung it in the road and they put it over the fence, but you could see where it was. Now look right.
Good morning, Miss Fox. We're watching some new info that came out on the crash of their approach of Greg Biffle's jet. Um, this guy is saying that he took a piece of wood home, a piece of the tree that was splintered, and the next morning when he went to his truck, he smelled varnish, which is jet fuel pretty much. After it sits for a little bit, you can smell it. It does smell like varnish. But he's saying that the tank, uh, which was the wing, that's where they store their gasoline inside the wings, uh, was possibly ripped open, before it hit the ground, and it might have been on fire before it hit the ground. But let's listen to a little bit more. And this guy explains it, and he goes through the pattern. Uh, he takes a drone up and uh, makes an approach with his drone, but you can actually see where they clip the trees. And I think he came in so low. If you look at that airport, it's built on a mound. So he was lower than the runway. So keep that in mind when he comes in. He's already clipping the fence in these trees. And the pattern that he's on is way, way, way too low. But we already know that because we can see it on radar, the plane fluctuating in altitude. So let's watch this, Jen.
Here I'm going to show you in a moment where there is a mark. They put these orange marks here to show that there was an item laying here. And if they hit that, it tore the wing off and split it. And the part was laying literally right below where I'm standing. You see it hit the edge of the tree. It went directly between these two trees. It clipped the tops of these and they cut them down and put them at the road. And I took a piece and it had the jet fuel on it. Now look what's below my feet right here. That orange mark, that's where a piece of the wing was laying. And right here, look at this picture. That hit that orange pole. That split that wing open, spilled fuel right here, and then it went across the street, and the nose hit, the nose wheel, what they call the lander, the nose gear hit, and I'll take you over there and show you where. But I'm going to show you first. Look at this right here. You can see where the wing went around it. You see that scuff mark down? That's where the wing straddled it. It was that low when it hit. And what it did was knock the top off. That's why the top is not bent. It just knocked it off. but you can see right there, I'm going to zoom in. You see that scuff. That's where the V of that wing that was laying down there is from. In my opinion, and I want you to understand this is strictly my opinion. I am no airplane expert, no accident expert, just a man with a superpower called common sense. All right, now let's look at the trajectory to where the nose gear hit the landing gear. So this is my drone footage. I'm in the alignment path of the
All right, this is where he's flying his drone. Now you can see the scorched earth where they hit, right? They hit below the runway, right? Now, whether one of the tanks were ripped open, leaking jet fuel, which is probably what happened. It didn't tear the wing off, but it ripped open part of it. They're just like tin cans, aluminum. And it was leaking fuel, and it hit something else probably, and it could have ignited. That's true. If it hit any metal or anything was ripped off of it, would cause sparks or anything like that. Metal on metal usually causes sparks. So the tank rips open. He's leaking fuel. He comes in. He hits something else that's maybe metal, like the fence or these telephone poles that look like they're metal, and it ignites it before it even hits the ground. It's possible. We really don't see it because the plane is actually lower than the runway. The footage we're seeing is from way back here from these buildings. So we're really not seeing. We see the plane come screaming across here on fire, but we don't know if it was on fire before it hit the ground. Let's continue watching.
Runway, you can see that. And if you look down, you'll see the lights, the trees is what I'm going to call them, the orange trees with the lights on them. And I'm going to drop on down in here, and you see that tree right there below us. They missed that one, but they hit this one. And once we get here, the right wing hit that pole, and they were low enough that you saw where it straddled the pole. They were low enough to go through here and hit the tops of these trees, which were only maybe 15, 18 feet tall. And then they end up with the nose gear hitting that mark right there. When I stop here, I'm going to point down so you can see. This is
All right. So what he's saying is that dark spot right there, right next to that patch of brush or whatever, is where the nose gear hit. Which, good God Almighty, they're low. If the front nose landing gear hit the ground, they're way too low, and they probably realize it. And I imagine them going through that fence there and them metal poles is what ignited it, and whoosh, hit the ground, and it was just a fireball. Let's keep going.
that mark right there. When I stop here, I'm going to point down so you can see. This is where the front tire dug in. The fence ripped the tire off, and I'll show you a photo. You see that orange mark there by the fence? That's where the front tire was laying, the landing gear, the nose gear. It was right there. So that landing gear was ripped off by the top pole of the fence. I'll show it to you right now where it's bent.
All right, now that wheel being ripped off like that, you have to remember there's power going to it, hydraulic power going to it, numerous things going to the landing gear. So if that rips off, that's enough to cause a spark, right? Because it's ripping wires and hydraulic lines out, and it sparks. and ignites it, that's possible.
Where that tire grabbed it and just put it in a U shape and slung it, and it's over to the right. So right there is the top rail post to the fence. You can see it is bent. That's where the tire grabbed it, or it grabbed the tire and it pulled the tire off the airplane as it went by. And keep in mind, this thing went by at 122 miles per hour. 106 knots is what they say. What I feel like happened is the tire dug in right there. It hit the top of the fence, tore the nose gear off. The wings went between the two T's right here. There's one on the left that you can see part of it still there. The one on the right is not completely down, and that's what started the fire. It spilled jet fuel on the other side of the road where the tree line was, but it did not ignite over there. It ignited over here. There was a guy there that's in the long version that'll be on my other channel that said that he thought maybe the lights having electricity in them could have sparked and set it off. But I think just the metal hitting metal was enough spark to set it off, especially with the right wing already leaking and jet fuel pouring out. But then from there all the way to where it came to a rest was a fireball, as you saw. So now let's talk about the weather conditions that probably exacerbated this situation. You see the fireball.
All right, we looked at this video before. Now, in this footage, this is the buildings that we were talking about that I was pointing at with my mouse. This is the footage, and when this plane comes into this footage, it's already on fire. So, and these buildings are way down the runway. So that's pretty crazy, right? So we know it was on fire way before it came through this camera. So, as we said before, it's possible that, it was on fire, as I said before in the first video I did, before we see this. It could have been on fire in the air. We don't know. Could have been a fire problem within the cabin or something, instrumental. And this made it worse when it came down and ripped hit the trees and everything. It might have ripped the tanks open. That's true. They're just aluminum. They're strong, but when you're doing 100-something miles an hour and you rip through a metal pole or a fence or trees or whatever that are, 8 inches round or whatever, it'll rip stuff up. Yo, Valdez.
Well, you've seen this video. If you look to the left of the box truck, you can see out in the distance that there was fog. It was cloudy and foggy. The fog was on the ground. Now, where we're at, it's not that foggy, but if you go up 100 feet, it was probably very foggy. And look at this photo. You can see out in the distance, you see up above the trees, it's very dark and foggy. I think they were coming through the fog and misjudged their height. And the guy that was there with me said if they were 50 feet higher, they would have made it. They just came in 50 feet too low, clipped that post on the right-hand side, which made the wing leak. It put fuel all over those trees, and I would have never figured this out if I didn't take a piece of that tree with me and smell the jet fuel the next day. It poured fuel out as it struck the first T and then struck the next 2 T's. When it struck those next 2 T's, it ignited the fuel, and then you see it started right there and went all the way to the point where it came to rest. Sadly, I wonder, and it may not have made any difference, but I wonder if they didn't strike the T on the golf course side, if it would have ignited the fire if it wasn't already leaking. But we'll never know that. Maybe the NTSB can give us some insight on all of this. As I mentioned, I'm not an expert by any stretch. I just went there as some.
Yeah, look how the runway in that area is built up there. So, could he have been dumping the fuel? Now, here's another interesting thing that I found out. They had 3 pilots on that plane. including Greg Biffle. But two of them, they're questioning this because two of them, one of them was a 747 jet, big air commercial flying dude, and the other one was his son, but he didn't have qualifications uh, to be flying supposedly, and the other pilot didn't have qualifications. So this might have been an instrument thing where this guy was used to flying a 747 Airbus or something like that, whatever he flew, and they're saying that he wasn't up to par with a Cessna jet, which is very unforgiving plane. People see it and they think it's very maneuverable, but it ain't. It's not. So it's a very difficult plane to fly, from what I've heard. And these guys just didn't have qualifications. Yes, they were pilots, but not for a Cessna. And they might have read the instrumentation wrong. We don't know. They might have had a meltdown. Instrumentation, it might have been on fire, an internal fire, gauges, something went wrong. Fog, everything played a part, like this guy's saying. Maybe the fog, it was too foggy. Well, that when it's foggy like that and you can't see, you're trained to fly on instrumentation. And these guys might not have been up to par with a Cessna instrumentation board. Pilot error, maybe. All right, let's watch the end of this.
One with common sense and tried to gather enough information to just give you a common sense approach to it. I've watched so many people making videos sitting at home on their butt with no information, acting like they know something, and they don't know anything. It's just the same stuff repeated. I think we all call clickbait. I at least made an effort to go try to find something that we could figure out. Thank y'all so much for watching. I am the Spa Guy. And as I mentioned, I'm no expert. I just wanted to give you some information so you could kind of dig into it and see if you could figure out what happened. Rest in peace, the families of Greg Biffle.
All right. So the last picture we're getting of this plane is it's on the runway. The wings are attacked. The whole plane's there. So that was very interesting. So it don't take much to rip these plane wings open like a tuna can, because they're just aluminum. They are reinforced with bracing and stuff like that, but you have to keep in mind it's just aluminum. So it could go either way. Pilot error. For all we know, this guy's used to driving a big jet, and he was dumping the fuel before he crashed. He knew he was coming in late. That's possible. He started dumping fuel. He hits a couple trees, hits something metal, it ignites it. He slams into the ground and it becomes a fireball. That's possible too. We got to wait until they find out what's going on. We know this much. The plane on radar is showing that there's a problem. If the sun's way low and then climbs real high, and then descends real low and then makes a banking turn, which takes its altitude and power, if they lost the engine. And as they're making that turn, he's losing altitude. He might not realize he's losing altitude, but when you go into a bank like that, and you only got one engine, it takes altitude and speed out. He might have came out of that. We don't know. He might have lost power to both engines, but then power came back on, right? He floored it and got up to 2,000 feet or whatever. And then the power goes out again in the motor or whatever. It's possible. It's very possible. There ain't nothing impossible anymore. We don't know. They'll have to go through it. I mean, it'll be hard to tell. I mean, they have the voice recorder, but is that going to show us? Was there indication lights? Showing internal fire, or is it going to show altitude warning lights coming on? Altitude too low. What's it going to show us? Hopefully they figure it out. Every plane should have a black box and a voice recorder. No matter what the size, that should be rule. You know, and it should be equipped with parachutes. And that's what I'm saying on this channel. If you lose power, you float back down to the ground. They're already doing it in small jets and single planes, small Cessnas, but we need to take it to a bigger level. All right, there. So anything. Hello, good morning, Miss ATS News. How you doing this morning? Happy holidays. I hope you had a good Christmas. We're just sitting around chilling. I got to babysit tonight, a dog. Our condolences go out to the Biffle family and anyone else that was on the jet. And hopefully they get to the bottom of it. Make sure you go check out the Spy Guy channel. Anything's possible. I would say his theory is possible, plausible. It could happen that way. We don't know, but I'll tell you what the main thing is going to be is these guys were not Cessna approved pilots. And from what the information I'm getting in the research that I'm watching, the Cessna is a very unforgivable plane to fly. Why? I don't know. But from what everyone is saying, it's very unforgivable. It's not a maneuverable jet. It looks fast, but it don't maneuver like a jet. It's pretty hard to fly, they're saying. And you're supposed to have 2 qualified pilots to fly it. One guy can fly it, but they recommend 2 pilots that are qualified to fly it when you fly on that jet. So it's a very unforgiving jet. Now, I got a gray squirrel running around out there, Debbie. The gray squirrel is back. He came into photo or into video earlier on the other video, but he's back. He's running around out there. Now, I want to make sure all you folks have a great day. Miss ATS News, it's good to see you. Hopefully, like I said, your holidays were good. The children are good. Everything's good. Hunker down. You got snow coming out there. A big snowstorm on its way out there to you. Be safe. I want to thank Debbie Fox for stopping in. Valdez, what happened? I broke it on the 23rd and had to wait till yesterday to get a new one. What'd you break? Oh, you broke your phone. You had to get a new one. After you reset it and wiped everything out, you broke it. We always hear that. I think I just broke this computer. All right, you folks have a great day. Valdez, we hope you get your phone back. We're missing you as a viewer here. Everyone have a great day. God bless them. We'll be back with more intel once it comes in on the Greg Biffle crash. Have a good day, folks.